Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Pedro.
This is Jackson.
You're watching Solid Foundation. Jackson, today we're going to make it all about the consumer, man. Those people looking to sell.
Yep.
What they should be aware of, how they should prepare for the sell, and just pretty much everything in between. So with that being said, man, what are some of the first things that you would recommend someone looking to sell? You know, what should they consider before even going on the market?
Absolutely. It's a great question, and many sellers, I'm sure you guys are thinking of it out there. Basically, you want to make sure you check on what the value of the home is, right? It sounds like a basic answer, but you know, the value of you know, your CMA, your competition out there, you know, what other properties have been selling in your neighborhood, and what their values are. You can also kind of use a tax appraisal to kind of help you out. You know, the tax man's definitely keeping track of what your value is, so you can kind of base a little bit of information there. Then, you know, how long have you owned your home? You know, I think that's a big consideration that people don't think about. How much equity do I have? You know, what did you pay for it? Because it's not really a very good decision to buy a home and normally have to sell it within 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So, you know, you want to see it from that perspective. You know, you want to see how much money, is it worth it? You know, and basically what are my competition is a big thing too. So, you know, when you're doing that CMA, Pedro, I know we're both looking for sales, but what are some other stuff that you would look at to help a seller kind of make that decision?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at the whole area, right? The whole neighborhood if I can. If not, I will probably do a 6-mile radius or so, as close as possible.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for comps that are very similar as far as, you know, in comparison to the house we're looking to sell. So I'm looking at square footage. I'm looking at the year that was built. I'm looking at the amount of rooms. I'm looking at any upgrades that might be, you know, significant compared to the others. But I'm really focusing on the amount of days. I mean, in this market right now, we understand that it's a slower market. So we know that the houses are going to sit for a little bit longer. So to me, it's more of a conversation with the seller to make sure they understand what the competition looks like, what a good market price would be for the home, right? Sometimes people have this perception of what their home is worth. But, you know, I always like for them to understand that, you know, the market is going to determine the price of the home for the most part, right? So I'm looking at the days on the market, and then I'm also looking at the circumstances. If someone needs to move quick, maybe going towards the higher price of the market price, you know, might not be the best thing. Maybe a little bit lower than that if they want faster results, right? So what about you?
I definitely agree. Like, you know, it's a big time right now, days on market and pricing the home correctly. Just like you said, if you're pricing it right now, it's selling faster. You're normally getting closer to that number you want. I know it sounds weird, but it's, you know, if you price it just right on market value or right under, you're more likely to sell. That is a risk now. You know, back in the COVID times, you know, pretty much anything would sell. And it was very easy. We put it on the market, you'd get the number you wanted, and everybody was super happy. And now we have to risk, you know, how long is it going to be on the market? And is it going to sell at that price? And if you go 150 days before you figure that out, now your home is in a worse position, you know, to sell. So yeah, I mean, looking at that, you're right though. I mean, I stick really hard on square footage. You know, people really talk about 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms and whatnot, but they don't consider, you know, if I have an 800 square foot home and it's got 4 bedrooms, well, those 4 bedrooms are probably pretty small, right? So you want to compare similar square footage. You know, you don't want to compare new construction with pre-owned. So definitely don't make that mistake. And people are seeing brand new homes get built. There's always a price premium to brand new. So I think that's a huge consideration that people have to watch out for. But, you know, it's something you can think about too, though. Like if all of a sudden it's now $350 per square foot to build a house, but your house is only priced at $300 a square foot, you might be in a good position. So yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, just taking all that into consideration before you go on the market is massive right now, because if you don't, it'll sit there.
And, you know, and I really like everything you said, and that's really on point. So I think it goes back to having a solid agent that's going to provide all this knowledge to you, right? As an owner, you know, you can only do so much, and that's why you would put your listings in the hands of an expert. Someone that understands everything we just talked about.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that agent will convey that information in a good manner to the client so that they understand and have realistic expectations. So we know that sellers control a few things when it comes to listings.
Yep.
What are some of those things?
Yeah, so you have three controllables, the big ones, price, the condition, and the marketing. So obviously marketing is huge, picking the right agent, picking somebody who's going to put it on all the websites, do the good photos, make it easy to schedule. Then of course price we talked about as well. But now we're kind of on to condition, and maybe why you're selling. I think somebody comes to the conclusion, I just want to sell and upgrade, right? I think a lot of people make that decision. Or, I don't want to put $100K into this house because I'd rather just move to a different location. So, condition is another big one. So start to talk about that and kind of what you've seen.
So to me, the condition is huge, right? So anytime I do a listing consultation, I'm not just talking about everything we mentioned, but I'm also walking the house. I'm also providing the client with what I know based off the market. I'm asking, what upgrades they have done, what things I would recommend that they do, right? And I'm not talking something crazy. And it all depends. Sometimes the client may not have enough money to do anything to the house, and that's totally fine as long as they understand that the price is going to reflect the condition, right? But if they do have a budget, let's say they have a small budget to do a few things. Some of the things that I focus on, to me, not so much necessarily on upgrades, but maybe more like basic cleaning, right? Like things that are small, but could definitely impact the sale of your home. Paint.
Absolutely.
Right? Rotting.
Yeah.
Things that we know an inspector is going to look for, and maybe even the appraiser is going to notice and could flag that as a required repair.
I agree. I think everyone wants to be the Chip and Joanna Gaines. Everybody all of a sudden right at the end when they're going to sell their house, they're like, man, Jackson, I've got to make it look nice. I don't have marble countertops and all that stuff. And I say, look, check this out. Like, let's look at it, market value as it is. Like, as it is today, what could you get? And if the price is drastically different, if you do those upgrades, then it is a consideration you can take. But if you're paying $50K to do these cosmetic upgrades, and then you're only going to get $50K upon the sell, you're slowing your timeline down. You've got to get all that work done only to make the same amount of money that you put in. So you're right. You don't have to do crazy stuff. I typically tell people, when's the last time you did the roof? Like, when's the last time your water heater was changed out? How
do you service the HVAC?
Right, exactly. How old is the HVAC? Right, because those are the parts that, like you said, an inspector might flag as deficient or needs to be repaired. And if you've done all these cosmetic upgrades and then you get hit with that on the inspection, now you got a whole another set of money. So it's a bit of a dance. I tell a lot of people, normally, even homes I've been in, they're built in like the 1960s, you know what I mean? I tell them, well, it's in really good condition. You updated the AC, you've kept up with the roof, and it's livable, right? I think you may consider just listing it. And people it blows their mind sometimes. But sometimes that's the right decision.
Exactly. So I like that. I really do. But I want to give people an idea of how much money they should have up front. And I'm not talking about repairs. I'm talking about overall, like the cost of listing, selling, what to have already prepared in case you need to provide concessions, all that thing. So what is the number you get people? And I'll let you know, for me, I usually tell them about 2% or so, 2 or 3%.
Yeah, and that's just like on like any type of inspection request or something like that. Yeah, I would say that's a good, fair estimate. I think something too, I tell people to budget in their head though, what's nice is on the sale of your property, a lot of these can come out of the profit. So like you can take a lot of cost all the way to the closing table as a seller. I would definitely say 2% is a good estimate too. But what's really nice is if someone asks after an inspection, can you repair X, Y, and Z?
Right.
Well, we can, but we'll have the contractor paid at closing, and that saves the seller the out-of-pocket cost. But there are also, of course, title fees.
Yes.
That everyone has to pay. You know, title insurance,
commissions,
and then commissions exactly,
which are negotiable on both sides.
Right. You know, I mean, a lot of people, you know, the standard for here in Texas, so we hear a lot, 6%, but it's of course negotiable.
And it's important to let the client know, right? Course, like, hey, how much are you wanting to pay the buyer's agent? How much are you wanting to pay me? How much am I willing to do this for?
Yeah, it's all negotiable as a seller. I mean, you guys out there, you know, if you're following it, the lawsuits and stuff like that, it's really just about explaining it, you know, and that's our duty to explain it. And yeah, it is negotiable, and it is your option. But yeah, I mean, going through all that before you sign paperwork with an agent and, you know, market the home, that's a big thing to think about, for sure.
Absolutely, man. So you mentioned being able to pay at closing for different things. I like that you mentioned that, because a lot of people, I mean, we came across people that wanted to do a few things, a few repairs to the home, but they couldn't afford it. But they did have the option to do it at closing because it has so much equity. Maybe they have been living in there for 20 freaking years.
Exactly.
Right? So you have different companies out there, and I'm sure locally you'll probably find, you know, handyman or different companies that are willing to do the work.
Definitely. Write
you an invoice and make sure that they get paid at closing, right? So that is a really great tool for people. Now, it could be a little bit more expensive, of course, because someone is literally trusting you with their work and what they're willing to put into your house.
Yeah.
Without seeing anything in front of them.
And and the home has to sell for them to get paid. So yeah, you're right. It's a little more risk for the contractors. So you know, people that do offer that for you
it'll probably
come a little bit premium and stuff like that. But I mean, there's so many options, flexibility to sell and still get the job done, right? So that's basically what we're telling you is don't be afraid to list it, right? Don't be afraid to list it and get that equity you may need to move on out of that house just because you need to do work to it.
Yep.
You know, because you're going to make money on the house if you've been in it. Really, I tell people, you know, after 4 or 5 years, you're going to have equity built up, and you're going to be able to at least extract what you put into it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just don't let it scare you away. I think, you know, we kind of touched on it too. So explain a little bit more the decision making as a seller. You know, why I'm selling. Like, what are some reasons you've heard? You know, what are some good reasons, some bad reasons?
Well, I mean, the most common one, upgrading.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people started with a starter home. Nothing wrong with that, right? I think it's the smartest thing anybody can do. If you're watching this and you might be thinking of the dream home, but you can't afford it, just get something that works for you at the end of the day. Because this house that you're going to buy that's comfortable for your current situation it's way better than having your money in a bank account. That is just given, right? So you sit in it for 5 years and maybe, you know what, your family grew. Maybe it's time to upgrade and get to a bigger home. Maybe you're moving to another state. Maybe you're a new job somewhere. Maybe schools, right? San Antonio is one of those places where schools kind of command, you know, areas and prices in different areas. So those are the most common ones that I come across. Just upgrading for the most part. But, you know, to me, when it comes to them, I always make sure to talk about the pros and cons of selling.
Of course.
Especially in this market, right? We know the rates are a little bit higher. We know it's a slower market. We understand the sellers might have to contribute a little bit on the buyer's side to kind of make the deal sweet. So, you know, what are some of the pros and cons that you would tell people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one con I talked about before is, you know, if you don't have that much equity, you know, if you're trying to move or you have drastic situation change.
So let's say you bought 2 years ago during the end of COVID, right? And you paid 50, 70K above asking price to win it.
Yep.
And now it's 3 years later and the house is still at the same price that you bought it for, or maybe even a little bit less.
Right, and we run into it a lot. Yeah, we run into it a lot right now, and I tell people usually, hey, I'm happy to have this consult with you. I'm glad, you know, you called us, but it's probably not the right time to sell because of those fees we talked about before. You're going to come in as a net loss because you're paying, you know, the 6% or the 2% to do repairs or whatever may be needed by the house. So what I normally recommend is, you know, and a pro sometimes of having just a conversation of sell or not is, you know, what's it rent for?
Yeah.
You know, can you still make the move somewhere else, utilize the home you have to have rental income,
right,
and still get out of it ahead,
and still make it count towards income, right? So that you can still afford the next one,
right? So
and that's a great point you made, because I mean, rents always go up. So even if the market says, you know, you're not going to make too much of selling it right now, if you rent it, it'll at least cover your mortgage and then some.
Right.
And then that alone will get you qualified for something else.
Right. And at least get you out of the bad situation. Right.
If and you normally still get to keep your house.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally, if you're moving, like we said, within 2 or 3 years, it's normally an emergency. It's normally a good reason. Yeah, normally renting it, keeping it, just if you can survive and hold on to that asset, it's normally better. And even if you sold it even just 2 years later, and you don't want to be a landlord, that type of thing, you would at least make money and come out ahead. And yeah, I mean, doing that is better than losing it, you know, entirely, and having to repeat being a brand new homeowner and you have no equity.
So let's address the elephant in the room, the question that I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do. So Jackson, I bought this house 7 years ago with a 2.5% interest rate. Why would I sell it when the market is at 6.75 or 7% right now?
Yeah.
What would you say to those people? And then I'll give you my answer.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say to those people, you're absolutely right. You know, the interest rate, it is tough to swallow. However, that's why we need to talk about why you're moving. You know, that's why we need to know. Like, if it's for job relocation and you're moving states, it's something you cannot avoid, right? So how do we take advantage of your low interest rate? Sometimes that's, again, keeping it and renting it out, because your payment is so low with the low interest rate that you can possibly make money on rent, still buy that next house.
And it still doesn't mean that you should not continue to invest in real estate.
Right, yeah, so you can keep the train going, you know, is what I like to say. The other thing is, you know, there are other options out there. You know, we don't have to accept the federal rate right now. We can find you a home that has an assumable rate, or we can find you a home with a 2-1 buy down, right? And we can do those things and still make your payment tolerable, and you hold both properties possibly, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's what I tell them is, you know, the rate too, it's not going to be 7% forever. You can always refi. So
that's true.
Yeah.
And, you know, something I like to add to that is, you know, I make sure they understand, yes, the rates are higher, but also the opportunities you have now are very good.
Absolutely.
I mean, right now it's so unique where you can get a house that's maybe, you know, in a way faster market, it would probably sell for a lot more, but because of the fact that it's been sitting for a while, and because the sellers of that home also have a need to sell, you can negotiate a very sweet deal that can save you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 right now. If you're willing to accept that rate, whatever you get, and then later on refinance. I mean, you only have this window right now where you're going to be able to get such a sweet deal. I mean, new construction right now, they're literally throwing money to buyers right now. I mean, they're giving way lower rates. All the prices are negotiable. Like, the price tags don't even matter anymore.
Yeah,
right. No, even if you see a 300, you can go in right at 275 and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, will this happen if the rates drop? Probably not.
Not at all. No, like, I think what you brought up about new construction is absolutely right. Like, if you didn't buy brand new when the rates were low, this is the time now to buy brand new. They're offering great incentives, and, you know, it may be a reason why you should, you know, consider selling. You can get that equity out from being in there only a short period of time, come in under list price on a brand new home,
all the closing costs paid
and
for,
get everything paid for, and you come out net ahead, you know, and you upgrade it into a brand new house. You know, and that's a huge point. You know, you're absolutely right.
Can you touch on some of the different flexible selling options that you see out there? So with a unique market like this, it makes for different ways of purchasing to come out, right? And a lot of them we've seen here in San Antonio that I came across is the subject to.
Yep.
Right? Subject to, pretty much an investor, someone will pretty much take over your loan, right, for a certain amount of time. whether that amount of time and then balloon payment and cover the full amount that's owed, or just continue to keep it at that payment.
Yep.
However that is one option. However, I don't think it's for everybody. I think it all goes back to the need. What's making you move? You have people that are in real bad situations financially, right? Maybe someone taking over your loan might be better than losing the house completely.
Yeah.
Foreclosure.
And it's faster, right? I think subject to the big advantage is it can be, 2 weeks. Like, because that some lender or even just investor, like you said, can come in and just assume, that loan as a subject to, and that's an instant closing basically for you. There's less risk. You can get out, pull that money out, like you said, and tie up some financial issues. There are so many new traditional ways, and I think this really applies if you're a seller out there that needs the help. If you need the money, it's going to take longer to sell right now. But if you offer, for someone to assume your loan, if you offer seller financing, that's another big one. You can
Maybe you have a sweet rate too.
Yeah,
and someone wants that rate.
Exactly.
Because that's what all this strategic offers come at, right? Is them chasing the rate that you currently have.
Yep.
They target people that have lower rates because they understand the market is higher, so they might propose something to you, right? But if I know I need to sell, you have loan assumptions too.
Yep.
VA, FHA, different types of ways where someone can come and take over your loan. And, whether you agree with that or not, I think it would be for you to discuss with your agent and have a conversation, understand your situation. But I do think it's a route for some people.
Yeah, I think it really just comes down to the situation. And when you have that original consult, it's telling your agent, I need the money, in X amount of time.
Right.
It's super important. Key is timing right now in the market. But there are so many other non-traditional ways to get it going. Now, when you're talking about selling too, and you're having the conversation, another big something to talk about is, can you go ahead and move somewhere else, and then list your home?
Okay.
That way the home is vacant, right? So talk about this, Pedro. You have a buyer looking, and you're scheduling homes. Having to schedule an occupied home versus a vacant home, is that easier? Kind of talk about that.
Well, it is a lot easier when the home is vacant. It just makes it very easy for any agent to come in at any time and book a showing, right? And to me, in a market like this, we can't afford to miss showings.
Right.
And a lot of times when the home is occupied, and we understand people have lives, and some people work from home, right? After COVID, it became a thing.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's all about how showable is this house? How available is it, right? Because that one appointment that you canceled as the seller when you're at home working, that might have been the one that you needed to sell this house.
Yep.
And it just makes it so much easier for agents to access that home at any moment, right? And still bring in people. And even if it's already under contract, you still, I still want to show it and maybe have a potential backup offer. Right. And not have to worry about, putting things away, or maybe animals in the house, or, intruding the home when people are working there, or whatever that is, right? So I just think it's a lot easier if the home is vacant for everyone, for the sellers and for the buyers.
Right. No, absolutely. So it's a big consideration. I always ask my sellers, is it something you can do, or, where are you moving?
Right.
That's just the critical question really is, have you bought a house already? When are you moving? Do we need to make the timing of this sell, important,
match,
so that you move?
Yep.
You move right out of one house into another. Vacant home, if you can leave your home completely empty, it's easier to show. You normally sell faster. So it is something to consider when you're talking about listing as well.
But, it's not required. Of course, we understand if you live there, we can still sell the home regardless, as long as you do your part and understand that probably every day when you wake up, you have to pick up.
Every day. Yeah. Because that's the thing too, we can also have your house where you can schedule a time window, where only, showings only happen after 5 or showings only happen from 3 to 5 p.m., during the week, and then the weekend is open. But it is tougher, right?
Yeah.
You never know when a buyer is going to try to schedule it. And so, yeah, the house has to be looking like a model home,
exactly.
At all times. So that's a tough one.
I mean, and it can be difficult, but at the end of the day, if you're willing to do that and you have a flexible agent who can still make stuff happen, hey, even if you work at home and we can't show it, I'm still going to try to do open houses for you. I'm still going to do a lot of different things to help, right? Maybe the only days you can be out of the houses on the weekends, I'm going to maximize that time as your agent. I want to make sure that I probably host an open house on Saturday and Sunday, bring in as many people as possible, because I know that Monday through Friday, my clients are working at home and they probably won't let anybody in.
Yep.
Right? So also, when a home is occupied, when a home is vacant, if the home is vacant, just make sure you have all the services, all the utilities available, right?
Oh, yeah.
As a requirement here in Texas, buyers will inspect the home 9 times out of 10.
Yep.
They should, right? I'm always going to recommend that. But part of a requirement is to make sure that all utilities are being able to be tested.
Yep.
So water, gas, electric, everything has to be on.
Yep.
So don't think that just because you left, you can just leave it.
That's true.
All dark.
Power off. Yeah, your breakers are all
people
turned
still have
off.
to check it.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as you understand that, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, it's still, you still have to picture yourself that you're the owner of the home until the very last closing day, right? And so don't forget about that. It's easy to do when you have a home that's on the market for 120 plus days. I've been in a lot of houses and I go to try to show it and all the light switches don't work. So yeah, definitely consider your holding cost. I think that's a good point to bring up is, if this home stays on the market for 120 or more days, can you survive with that listing?
Right.
And so that's an immediate factor you have to think about before you go on the market. Can I still make this payment? Am I making 2 payments, right? Because we talked about if you've already bought something else and moved out, now you're probably having to hold 2 payments. And how long can you do that? Before it's a problem.
Right.
And so always consider that, because we're very blessed. Our market hasn't been bad enough where you have really, really long listing times. But it's all about pricing it right. I mean, that's what we went back to, and pricing it right, getting it off the market as fast as possible is going to be the best benefit to you, even if it's a couple of thousand short of, your dream. And,
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the question that everybody cringes about, price reduction.
Yeah.
Oof, that topic just makes people, right? I'm talking about agents asking that question, and also the sellers knowing that that's probably where they have to go, right? When is the right time for a price reduction? I'll give you my answer that I would consider. To me, like I said, every time, and if you're watching this video, you're going to hear us talk about the circumstances. And I'm going to keep saying that because it all depends on the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
If someone has no choice and they have to clear a certain amount of money in order to make it make sense or to even break even, I'm probably not going to even bring it up.
Yeah, there's no
right?
choice.
It's just not much you can do there, right? So, but if you do have someone that has equity, they have the need to go elsewhere in a timely manner, then those conversations need to be had, and part of my listing appointment consultations that I do before we even go live, I already bring up when I might be approaching this topic.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, month 1 or so comes around, after 2-3 open houses, we're not seeing much traffic. We probably want to talk about a price reduction. But then I bring it up to them into my consultation as to why we should list at the right price from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to have too many of those. Because one thing that people don't consider when they think that their home is, worth so much more is the stigma that sticks with the house every time you reduce the price.
Yeah.
Right? That stigma never leaves the home. If I'm, as a consumer, as an agent, I understand that it happens. But the client at home looking on Zillow, they see 5 price reductions. They think something is wrong.
I was just going to say the very first question. Yeah, that they
think something is
like,
wrong.
What's wrong?
And even if the house is in great shape,
Yeah.
because they're seeing all this price reductions, but they're not understanding what's wrong with it. And it really was a communication issue between the client and the agent from the beginning to not list it at the right price. If you list at the right price, maybe 1 or 2 price reductions at the most is what I came across for me and my clients. What about you?
Yeah, no, you're right. Exactly. I have the talk at the very beginning too. I talk about, I think we're pricing it a little high. Let's say we're trying to shoot for the sky, and trying to come back to reality. I say, we can try this price. I'm always willing to try a price for any seller. But if it doesn't work out or we don't get showings within the first 2 weeks, we've got to come down. That's because you want to catch it early. The longer you wait,
you have one shot, right?
Right. The longer you wait, it's just going to take much longer. People are going to ask you, is there problems?
The stigma of the home being reduced every time.
Yeah. So that's when I am really looking. Is like the first 2 weeks really matter right now. And you want to capture everything. You want to capture feedback. You want to try to get people in the home, even if they don't like the price. But if it's too high, like they won't even schedule it. You brought up something good too, like inspections. Inspections will stick on the home too. So if you have an inspection on your home and we can't negotiate, out of that inspection and they terminate, well, now you've got an inspection that you may have to disclose. And that's going to be tough on that next buyer. And you may end up less money, even though you could have negotiated just out of the inspection.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe for not wanting to lose a couple grand to work it out with this person, now you're in a worse position where now the next buyer understands you have a lot of different things that came up. Yep. And now your offer is going to be 10 grand short than what you had before.
Yep.
Right? So that is something very unique. But like I said, it always goes back to the person's circumstance.
Yeah. No, yeah.
People don't have much and it is what it is. We're still going to try. At the end of the day, as a good agent, you try your best for your client.
Right.
Whatever that is, right? Even if it's at the higher price end, you still try, demonstrate, so that at any moment they can't say that the reason why it's not selling is because you're not doing your job.
Exactly.
So they understand. It's more of a self-reflection moment for them after a while. For those that look at it from the mature standpoint, like, hey, this agent has done everything, right? They hosted 5 open houses.
Yep.
They bring in people. They market everywhere. They do everything.
Videos, yeah.
The only reason why it's sticking around is because I was very, set on this higher price. Maybe I should come down to that.
Yeah, no, and again, it comes down to those 3 things. It's price, condition, marketing. And like you said, marketing is a big one on the agent. It's a big one for you guys to pick the right one out there. My, little last tip at the end here is basically just don't go with the agent that's telling you, oh yeah, I can get you $1 million. Like, I can win every listing appointment I go to. If I go and told them the dream, what every house I go to is worth $500K, they'll list with me. But you don't want that agent, okay? You want someone that's coming at you with honest numbers, something that, somebody that gives you a range. I always give like a high, medium, low. And what I realistically think we could bring and what we could see, and someone who may tell you, you may not need to sell right.
Yeah.
That's the
honesty,
guy.
man.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the honesty. Yeah.
To me, and it's not just so much for them, but also for the agent. Like, I like what you said. Don't just go with the person that promised you the stars and the moon, right? Because it's not about having listings. That's it.
Right.
I'd rather have 1 or 2, but they sell because I did my job right, and I had a clear understanding with the client. Than to have 10 with my picture somewhere and they've been sitting on the market for 270 days. Yeah. What does that do for anybody? Number 1, that client is probably not going to work with you again, right? Number 2, they're not going to recommend you. And number 3, you're sitting there, people knowing that you're listening to your sitting forever.
Too. Yeah.
So those 3 things are not what you want, right? From both perspectives, the agent and the client. But this is for clients right here, right? So honesty, guys. I mean, if your agent suggests that maybe is this time to rent, consider that.
Yeah.
That might be your best bet. You know someone that understands what your goal is for the next home, then maybe that person can guide you in the right direction and say, hey, let's rent it out. Let's get a different type of loan. Let's see what we can do. Maybe your way out to buying something else could be a seller financing for the next house, right? Right now, we're at a different point where seller financing interest rates are almost as close as the current lender rates. Maybe that's your way to get into the next house and still keep your own house right now. So listen to your agent if you have a good one. Don't just go with the first one if you don't feel like that person delivered, value to you. So keep searching around, right? Keep understanding what the market is, and just take care of your home is what I would want to end the video with. Is don't treat the home like it's just this home right here you're paying for every month is going to take care of you for the next one. Treat it as such, right? Don't mistreat it so much that you're going to have to do 40-50 grand in repairs just to make it ready.
Well, a guy, one of my mentors back in the day told me you should do one thing to your house a year, like to keep up with the trends, to make sure you're taking care of it.
I like that.
One big project a year, and that way you can budget it, you can space it out, and you'll be ready. Whenever it's that time to sell or move out and rent it, it'll be ready. And you don't have to do it all at once.
Man, I think we covered some great stuff for clients, for people that are looking to sell or even considering selling. We gave them some options. Last thing though, would you recommend for a seller to work with the same agent to help him buy the next home, and why?
That's a great question, and people think about it in their head, not all the time, but definitely when it gets there, they're like, I really like that guy or whatever. I think you absolutely should. The very only reason, if it's just this, is timing. Because that agent now, he knows your timeline for your sell, and he's going to help time that buy so that you don't close off days. You can coordinate everything that you need on both sides versus having to deal with two different agents working really against each other now because this guy over here really trying to sell. We need to close on this day. Whereas the buyer agent now, if it's a different person, is like, no, we need to close on this day. Whereas if you use the same agent, it's all in one accord,
I really like that, and I agree with you 100%. And I think it goes back to that person knowing your goals and understanding your timelines.
Exactly.
I'm going to hold you accountable to meet the timelines. And guess what? If you need a lease back, I'm going to negotiate that too on the other side. It's a nightmare dealing with another agent representing the same client for another house, and to try to be in tune is pretty crazy.
I would say the only exception is if it's a different state.
Out of town.
If it's a different state, obviously, but still we can refer great agents, right? And if you refer somebody, they're more likely to coordinate times and be on the same page. So definitely don't rule your agent out. Even if you're moving out of state, ask them, hey, do you know anyone in Utah? You know anyone in Chicago or whatnot, wherever you're moving, because we can normally refer you and still have good network, and good communication.
With that being said, man, I think we covered everything. I hope this video helps out. I think this video is going to be great for you looking to sell and to understand the market. So just stay tuned for next videos, man. We got some great stuff coming up.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe. You'll see the button right above us somewhere here. And we'll see you in the next one.